Hi, I'm Dylan Paris. I'm a musician, a YouTuber. I work in tech in my day job, and today I want to talk about the Maschine Plus. I've talked about it before. I have a review on my channel, which is doing pretty well, views-wise and reception-wise. It's actually like the third result on a cold, uncookied YouTube search for Maschine Plus right now, which is wild. I do apologize for some of the noise. There's kind of a storm going on today, so there's going to be some rain in the background. You may or may not hear it. The reason I want to make this video is because, I think people resonated with my review because we had a lot of really high hopes for this device. When you look at this thing, we've talked about this before, but in my opinion, this is the best designed standalone music device that's ever been created. As far as the aesthetic, industrial design, the feel of the device, the size of the device, the knobs, the workflow, these kind of things can be subjective, absolutely. But for my 2 cents, there is no workflow and no physical hardware to software interface that I like more than this. However, as I outlined in my review, there are quite a few issues, and especially were quite a few issues in my first few months of using the device that made me feel like it was not worth $1,400. And I think it was that price to issue ratio, right, that really made me feel how I feel, or at least really felt, which was kind of betrayed by this product. But I think we are critical about the things we have hope and love for. You look at this thing, you use this thing, and you know what it can be. Despite my criticisms, despite all of the things I said in my last video, which I stand by, I use this thing all the time. The sound quality of the internal synthesis engines and drum machines, the way patterns can be copied, the way scenes are created, all of this stuff just makes this thing stand out amongst all of the other devices in the category, if there is even really a device in this category. But I do think there are some things that really do need to change in this device to make it be what it can be. I am not certain that everything can be done in software. I mentioned this in my review. There are severe hardware limitations. At least that's my perception of this. They chose to use an Intel Atom processor, which are notoriously underpowered. There's a really interesting design document on the Native Instruments website that I do recommend looking at. They've made it themselves, so it's obviously not going to be criticism of the device, but it does talk about how it was made and the trade-offs and the decisions they made that ended up with this product. And they talk about the CPU and trying to make it a low power usage situation, and that there will be variance between the desktop performance of a Maschine Mark III and the standalone performance of a Maschine Plus. So it's important to keep in mind that there are hardware limitations here that might stop some of what I would like to see. Again, my apologies for the rain. The first thing is obviously stability, right? I don't think we can talk about the Maschine Plus without talking about it needs to just be rock solid stable, more than anything else, right? More than adding any new instruments, more than changing the UI, more than anything. Every function of this device needs to be dependable. And that is because if it was, this would be, in my opinion, the best standalone composition and live performance device. If this thing was truly stable, like really stable, and I know that nothing is 100% troubleshoot proof, right? I work in technology troubleshooting, I know. But if this thing was as solid as Ableton is, right? As Maschine is in general on my laptop, then it would be a lot easier to look past some of the limitations of the device. And the stability, I don't believe the stability is a hardware issue. I believe the stability is the result of Native Instruments creating essentially an operating system on top of a Linux layer, on top of an Intel Atom processor, creating a kind of new workflow from a software perspective. It is a Generation 1 product. I don't believe that is an excuse for stability issues. I sometimes get people in my comments like, what did you expect? Well, I expected what I was sold, which is, if you look at the advertising, the promotional materials, and the price of this device, they are telling you this thing can do what you think it can do. It is a standalone production and performance beast. It is not as powerful as your laptop or your desktop, but it can handle these tasks it's designed for. If it was stable, I think it justifies its price. More so than needing a battery, more so than needing a speaker. The stability alone, I think I could recommend this device. Do I think it should be cheaper? Yes. Do I understand that small companies need to recoup R&D and that in general, the creation of music devices is kind of a niche category? Yes. The Akai Force is $1,000. If this was stable and $1,000, I think I could recommend it basically wholeheartedly. So stability, obviously the first thing. For me, number 2 is that a lot of the user interface elements for this device are clearly designed to work in tandem with a computer. Let's load a new project. And now let's go to browser and get out of user. We'll go to instruments here and we'll use massive and we'll load up anything in massive. You're not going to hear it. I'm not capturing the audio here. When we go into the plugin, this is the interface we see. This is the classic interface you've seen on Maschine hardware since the Mark III. I think this is okay if you have a desktop or a laptop screen to see all the other additional fields on. But when it's just standalone here, I'm not the first person to say this, but it's too limited. And I think another way in which this product could be dramatically improved is if Native Instruments went out of their way to overhaul the UI of at least the plugins that work on the Plus so that they are way more craftable, intuitive, visual. Like, I want better visual feedback. I want to feel like I am really hands-on with these devices. Now, these knobs are giving you options. There's 16 pages of them, and we can click these buttons to go through these pages. The rest of the UI stays the same, and it's like looking at a JPEG or a PNG, and then a bunch of numbers. Now, in the numbers defense, you can automate all of these knobs in scenes, and you can duplicate scenes and change your automation. I don't want to undersell the power of this user interface. I just think it can be better, and I think if you can take Massive and FM8 and create visually intuitive ways to create patches from scratch, to edit patches as they exist and give us visual feedback, that would go a really long way towards making this feel like a more hands-on Groove device or a more hands-on instrument. The other thing I'd really like to see, and this truly may be limited by hardware, but I would love to see the Play series come to the Maschine Plus. I truly don't know if it can handle it. I believe this thing has 4 gigs of RAM, and a lot of the Play series instruments can be in the multiple gigabytes. So that might be out of the question. But if it's not, and again, like I said, I'm not the expert here, I would love to see more of the Play series come to this device. Hybrid keys, Analog Dream, I think it's Analog Dream. Other devices that already map to the knobs perfectly. When I'm using a MIDI controller in Ableton or Maschine on my computer, using the Play series is really cool. And having that kind of tactile feedback and that balancing of samples and mixing and control is, I think, a really good example of how this user interface could flourish. So bringing the Play series as well as other Native Instruments plugins to this device would be awesome, but that's in tandem with thinking about crafting user interface with just this device in mind. I think if you craft the user interface with this device in mind, you actually get a benefit for computer users as well. When I was a Mark III user, I actually liked to use my Maschine by itself. I wouldn't look at the screen, I would just use it in standalone, kind of because I wanted the Plus, but I couldn't afford it. If you focus on this UI, it will also benefit the S series of keyboards, which have knobs and screens as well, and it'll obviously benefit the standalone Maschine Plus and any devices you make afterwards. So focusing on creating a more intuitive user interface for the devices themselves to go along with your already extremely intuitive scenes and patterns and events. The creation elements of this are already rock solid. It's really the tuning of instruments, and I will acknowledge that polysynth exists. Let's load up a polysynth. So a weird nitpick here is if you want to get to the polysynth, you have to go to sounds and then Maschine and then polysynth, whereas everything else is in instruments. Guys, just put polysynth in instruments. Make it an instrument in the instruments tab. I don't know what you have to do that, but come on. Come on. Once you're here, you can load up a patch, go into plugin, and you have less pages, but it's possible to craft from scratch, right? That's the big complaint. FM8, Massive, you're not really creating full patches here to the same degree you can on a computer, but with polysynth, they designed it so that you can. But that said, you're still looking at pages of data with static UI elements, and I think that's an area that can be improved. And I'm hopeful that there's enough power on this device that you could improve the UI and the visual elements without tanking performance too much. But again, I'm not an expert, I'm not on the dev team. That may be out of the scope of possibility, and I understand that. The last really big thing that I want, personally, is an officially endorsed or created portable power solution. So right now, as of December 2021, it's pretty hard to find a way to get power to the Maschine Plus from a battery pack. There are like $100 and $200 battery packs you can buy, massive things that have full-size power ports on them. The ripcords, one, says you shouldn't use it for Maschine Plus in some of the posts I've seen, and two, even the people who have, when they link to the one they're using, That one's no longer available. It's out of stock, probably because a bunch of people are trying to do this. It would be very cool to have a Native Instruments created and supported at least cable, similar to a ripcords, but even better, something like the Electron handle that they made for their model samples and model cycles device. I don't need a handle on here, but an official portable power solution would be really cool. Cynics might say that a proprietary solution without a third-party option is, just another layer of them trying to monetize this device. But I mean, if there was an official solution that I knew wasn't going to harm my device, that I didn't have to go to a website that was out of stock or a third party or try to find something on Amazon, if Native Instruments sold a $100 pack and cable solution that was very easy to use and elegant and could give you, let's say, 4 hours of battery life. I mean, if you could do more, that'd be cool. And if it was elegant enough and worked well, you could see them create a value add of selling this with the battery for the same price. Now you have essentially a standalone portable powered unit for the same price as it was before. That might feel like a slap in the face to people who already paid $1,400, but I recognize that early adopters kind of always get screwed on price. This is going to get better and cheaper over time, and that's true of all technology. I don't think they should not improve this device just so I feel better about paying what I paid when I paid it. And so yeah, that for me is the big thing. Obviously, number one is stability. Number two is overhauling the UI for instruments so that they feel more intuitive and look better on this device. I think about the ways the Ableton Push 2 really improved on the Ableton Push 1 when it came to using things like operator and when they introduced wavetable. And then lastly, a portable power solution that is either endorsed by or created by Native Instruments. Something that I can Google battery pack Maschine Plus, get an official first result that isn't just here's the specs you want to look for, but here is the device or devices that we endorse and where to find them. Those to me would be huge, and I think they'd go a long way towards righting some of the wrongs out of the gate. That said, in my last video, a member of the industrial design team reached out to say that they heard what I was saying in that video recently, and I'm not going to put their name on blast because I don't want to be inappropriate here. I just want to say I really appreciate that the team listened and is looking at feedback, positive and negative. I do want to acknowledge that this device came out in the middle of a pandemic, that it's being supported in the middle of a pandemic, and that any endeavor to create the next generation of technology will have missteps along the way. The reason I'm invested in this, and I think the reason that a lot of the audience is invested in this, is because you can just look at this thing and know how great it can be. There are artists like Red Memes Recording, Bo Beats, Blez Beats, Jeff Gibbons. There are folks who are already using this and doing great work. I personally use this device more than almost any other music device I have, despite my criticism. So I do want to acknowledge the hard work being done. If you don't think I'm some kind of shill or suck up after that, consider liking and subscribing for more videos. For everyone who's already done that, thank you so much for getting me past 3,700 subscribers. Bonkers. I think I hit a lifetime of 20,000 watch hours. That's just amazing, and that's because of you. So thank you all again for watching, and I will catch you soon. And if you're watching Native Instruments, thank you for listening to my feedback, and I am really optimistic about what you can do to improve this product in the future. Okay.